Hello, I'm Liam, the music reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about the new Wonder Years album, Sister Cities. If you don't know who the Wonder Years are, if you weren't a pop punk emo kid during the early 2010s, then you might have no knowledge of them. But the Wonder Years are maybe not so much one of the biggest bands in the genre, but are definitely the most critically acclaimed, one of the most beloved, even when they went for a shift in their sound back with their 2015 album No Closer to Heaven, that marked more of a path towards just more conventional alt rock. And I know when I say that they were a pop punk band, you're thinking, oh, not one of those guys. I'm gonna keep my kids away from them. They're safe just now. I don't want to date this video by any means. In terms of my own personal opinion, I've had a soft spot for the Wonder Years. Well, I've never been like a huge fan of them. Philadelphia itself is very good for kind of more alternative bands. One of my favourites, More on Baseball, hail from Philadelphia as well. There's other acts like The War on Drugs that are also fairly good in my books, and then you've got It's All Sunny in Philadelphia. Must be good if it shares a name with that. The Wonder Years themselves, though, I've seen them live briefly once before. I was having a full-on anxiety attack at one of their gigs. But yeah, bar that, I've had a good experience with their career up till now. They're more hit than miss, even if there has been a fairly big miss in their discography as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I think it's more their lyrics that resonate with me more than anything. Dan Campbell, who kind of goes by the nickname Soupy, is just incredibly talented. He's a total wordsmith, and I think it's what gives them the upper edge. Like I say, might not be the biggest band in pop punk, but I would definitely say they're the most beloved, and they've definitely managed to kind of, like, when it came to them jumping from one genre to another, they've had their fans stay, because at their very essence, they're very transparent, they're very telling, and overall they just seem to be just kind of really caring about what they have to say, even if they do go about saying it in a different way. And Sister Cities here, their sixth album, is probably their most ambitious as far as I'm concerned. Again, I'm no Wonder Years genius by any stretch, but in terms of like an overall concept, I don't think the Wonder Years have ever really like went fully for a concept album. There's always been like kind of like consistent themes, and you could probably at a stretch say that some of their kind of like midway point in their career, they were talking a lot about adolescence, about mental health, but that seems to be the first one where there's a clear idea that fuels the entire run of the album, and that comes down to distance, comes about basically about kind of geography, down to the world tour that the Wonder Years went through for a good few years, and a lot of the stories that come from that tie into a lot of themes that have came about in their previous work, and they've definitely polished it. Lyrically, this is a great album. I do think it's the thing that draws me most towards it. As the band themselves put it, Sister Cities is a record about distance, or maybe how little the distance matters anymore. It's a record about how big we all thought it was and how much closer to everyone we really are. And I think the way the band go about doing this over the course of the 11 tracks is just done masterfully. How using different bits of culture, while not by any means appropriating, but using them in a way to get across messages, both personal and all-encompassing. Definitely fucked up the word there, but you know what I mean, like the way that it manages to kind of like resonate with you, no matter maybe your own personal experience. But there's topics like love and about loss that never feel too gimmicky, that never feel too cliche by any means. The first track, Rain in Kyoto, is probably one of my favourites. It just has this really brisk pace, and it just never lets up, just keeps going on. It all builds up to this chorus. It's difficult not to hum to yourself whenever you think about this album. It's just, this album may not have lots of big choruses, and I have heard this complaint that this is probably like their least anthemic, because they've definitely got some really big tunes that people go out their way to listen to, but this is probably the most kind of like introspective, the most kind of like not in your face in terms of how obvious it is in terms of instruments anyway. Lyrically, I do think this is the best work I've heard from them as of yet. Instrumentally, I think it does fall a bit flat. We'll get into that in a wee bit. But yeah, Rain in Kyoto is a brilliant start to all of this. Got this vocal delivery from Dan Campbell that matches how fast the song is going, and while I think you might need to have like a certain pop punk tolerance, because while their music has changed, Dan Campbell's vocals have remained fairly consistent, but they've always been good in my books. I listened to a lot of bands where people kind of complain about how whingy or how maybe cheesy the vocals are, but on here I think he's got a great voice that manages to really match what he's saying. You can tell that he's very sad about this relative that is passed, and he's talked about it before in previous bits of his work, but just kind of lines like reach into my pocket, found a small paper crane, and too much of a coward to even visit your grave, just to kind of hit home. It's just kind of trademark Wonder Years song. And like I'm saying, with this kind of culture, like a lot of things, I think if you have any sort of familiarity with any of these bits of culture, you'll pick up on them. It was quite a joy to go through Rock or Rap Genius to see all these kind of references and see how they all tie into this overall theme. I do think that there's a lot of impact just on a surface level, but the more you dig in, the more there is to kind of appreciate from it, and I think that's a good make of lyrics, something that just kind of has more and more quality to it the more you dig into it. But yeah, I was saying how there's like a whole kind of thing about love and loss that might be a bit cliched in terms of lyrical content, but I think the way that Wonder Years go about it here is at least interesting. There's a song Flowers Where Your Face Should Be, which is a romantic ballad about Dan Campbell's wife, and it just ties this whole kind of concept together, just finding universal themes, both positive and negative, to make the record feel like a challenging but comforting listen. There's also Pyramids of Salt, which on first listen I wasn't too sure about. I thought it sounded a bit too conventional instrumentally, and I do have that complaint with a lot of this album. I do think it plays it maybe a bit too safe and never really hit, not really much impact for him. But Pyramids of Salt has this chorus that ties into this whole feeling of powerlessness, about all these attempts that have been done that just get washed away, and again, just Dan Campbell's vocals here, you believe it. There's no facade put up. It all feels very genuine, and the Wonder Years have always been like that. Any good emo band worth their salt is able to deliver this authenticity, but instrumentally I do think that's where maybe not that the album falls flat, but it's held back, because while the lyrics are so good, I don't think the instrumentals nearly justify how great they are when it comes to emo music for me. I always think of somebody like American Football or More Baseball, who I brought before, where I feel this kind of emotional significance is both found in the performances and both found in the lyrics. They both go hand in hand, and they've made some of the best records that I've ever heard. And on here, I feel like if the instrumentals were maybe either a bit more experimental, or if they just had a bit more impact. I'm not saying they had to be big choruses. I didn't say that they had to be like really adventurous or just trying to be like stadium rock. I just think that some songs feel like I've heard so much of it before, and there feels like the lyrics themselves, which are kind of exciting and intriguing, and I would understand them being given more of a platform. But because there's so much going on, I would have liked it to be a bit more interesting, even if they tried to do something where they included more of the different countries they'd been to, maybe like kind of like a Talking Heads or Bombay Bicycle Club style. I might be asking a bit much, and I know that a lot of people probably do love the performances on here, and by no means are they bad. I just feel that it kind of holds it back a little bit. It stops it being a great album for me. But yeah, I think this album is quite a good beat experience. I would definitely recommend it, because I think there's been kind of a drought in my eyes in terms of good emo music this year, and while I wouldn't rate it quite as high as other albums in this genre over the past few years, I do think it's a worthy inclusion to the Wonder Years discography. I think the lyrics are maybe the best that they've ever been. I just wish that instrumentally had been given more to work with, more to enjoy, because I feel like when it came to No Closer to Heaven, it was such a change that I almost admired that more, because there was a kind of an evolution, whereas here I don't really feel it as much. Maybe people can kind of point out and maybe it'll change my mind, but on the kind of 4 or 5 listens I've had of this album, nothing's really kind of like resonated with me quite as much as even some of their pop punk music had. But yeah, overall I'm feeling a light to decent 7 out of 10 on this. Lyrically is what kind of interests me more than anything. I just wish that instrumentally I was kind of overcome with a bit more emotion that would kind of match it. There are a few songs on here where I feel like that kind of happens, but not nearly enough to make this a great album for me. If you guys have listened to it, let me know what you guys think. I think there's a lot for people to like and probably dislike about this, so I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Keep an eye out, we might be dropping something this week, maybe specifically Friday, that will have you guys interested. Might be some new content you'd like. But yeah, I've been Liam the Music Reviewer. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and I'll catch you guys very soon.